Hello everyone, I'm here with Reid Duke, one of the most famous Magic players. Maybe even the most famous one, I don't know. You're definitely up there. Because of that, I don't think that anyone watching this video doesn't know who Reid is, but just for a little bit of introduction, he's a former Magic Online champion. He's a runner-up at Worlds. He has 3 Pro Tour top 8s, and I think 23 Grand Prix top 8s, but maybe the information on the internet is outdated. But you have 6 wins. Is that correct?
Yeah, I did get a 4th Pro Tour top 8 recently. Just to
Oh, okay. I'm sorry about that.
I think the Grand Prix stuff was accurate.
Mm-hmm. It's
kind of
hard.
For the introduction, by the way.
It's kind of hard to keep track with like all the new systems. Like I don't really know what counts as a Pro Tour, what doesn't. So I don't really know.
Right. Mythic Championship.
Either way, you're obviously a great player. So I'm very happy that I can talk to you today. How is it going?
It's going good. Yeah. Thanks a lot again for the introduction. Thanks for having me on. I've been watching your interview series and enjoying it, and happy to be now a part of it.
Mm-hmm. So I'm not really sure where to start. Let's just start with your beginnings. I think that at the beginning you were like an MTGO grinder, and that's, you know, how you basically qualify for the Pro Tour, but maybe I'm wrong about that. So if you can just like talk about the start of your Magic career, maybe not even just like a pro career, but how you like started at all, and just stuff like that. If you can talk about it, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah, it's an interesting question because I did play Magic like ever since I was a really little kid. 5 years old was when I got my first pack of Magic cards. But and you know, I even went to the local store and played tournaments and stuff, but I never really had the ability or, you know, the desire to like go play high level events. And then when I got to college and I downloaded Magic Online, it also kind of coincided with them putting Pro Tour qualifiers on Magic Online. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of like my outlet. Like I didn't have to spend money or weekends to travel. I could just play a lot, you know, practice a lot online, and then play the weekend tournaments, the Magic Online Championship Series and the Pro Tour qualifiers. So that's what I did. I played a lot online and ended up qualifying for the first Pro Tour almost exactly at the time that I graduated from school. So that was another example of just, you know, timing working out really nicely.
Was that from Magic Online?
Yeah. Yeah, my first Pro Tour, or actually, I think what happened was I won a Mox, which was going to qualify me for the last Pro Tour of the year, like the World Championships in 2010. And then in the meantime, I ended up qualifying for the one right before that on rating. But like, same thing. I played a lot online and then got to the Pro Tour right after I graduated university. So
wait, you first won the Mox and then you played your first Pro Tour, is that right?
Well, the Mox at that time was connected to a Pro Tour. So it was like if you got first place in the online Mox qualifier, they sent you to the Pro Tour where you played the Pro Tour, and then at night after those rounds were over, you played the Mox.
See. I had no idea.
Actually, I played the Mox a couple of times. So the first time in 2010, I didn't win. I came like maybe 5th place or something. And then the following year I got back, and that was when I became the champion.
Did you start playing Magic with your brother? For people who don't know, Reid has a brother Ian. He was even part of a coverage for some time. I think he works for Wizards. Maybe not anymore, I don't really know. But did you start playing with him? Did that like play a big influence on why did you get into games so much?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I was 5, my brother Ian was 10 when we got our first pack of Magic cards. So it was like I could barely read, you know, let alone like interpret the rules and stuff like that. So it was, you know, a lot of Ian and I just playing cards on the bedroom floor and stuff like that. And Ian was always like, you know, in part because he's older, but also he's just like kind of a brilliant guy and a good gamer himself. He was always the better player for all the way up to like our adult life. He qualified for the Pro Tour, played a couple Pro Tours before I ever did, and it was only because basically I took the fork in the road where I wanted to be a player, and he took the fork in the road where he wanted to work for Wizards and be more on the design side of things, that our lives became much different at that point.
I wanted to ask about it a little bit later, but since you've already mentioned it, because your brother is working there, did you ever consider to maybe apply as well, or did you just always wanted to like be one of the best players and you didn't really care about that much?
I have had the opportunity to apply, and I have declined because nothing, like, I would love to have that job. I think it'd be awesome, and to work on the game that I love so much would be a cool way to give back. But you can't play the professional level events if you work for Wizards, and that was kind of the deal breaker for me. So I just picked that playing the Pro Tour and trying to compete against the best players was the most important thing for me, and I wasn't willing to give that up.
Did you ever had that conversation with your brother that like maybe he was like thinking about doing the same thing as you, but then he like decided to go that way? Like I'm sure you've talked about it, right? Like
yeah, well, so I'm sure that there's more to being like a pro player than just being good at Magic, right? You have to make lots of sacrifices in terms of your time, your travel. You have to bang your head against a wall for like months and years at a time before you can even make it to the Pro Tour sometimes. So it was just a question of like, did you want to make that commitment? And the answer was yes for me. And for my brother, like he played PTQs, he played the Pro Tour, everything, but he just wasn't, I guess, as into the traveling and competing weekend after weekend compared to me.
So Reid was actually inducted into the Hall of Fame. I think it's like a year or 2 years ago. I don't remember for sure. It's not really important. In your speech, you said that since the beginning you were kind of like committed, going all in, and that you would like never give up. Was that always the case, or like when did you decided that?
Yeah, I mean, I just love Magic so much. Like I did back then, I still do now, and it was like it didn't really matter how good I was.
I'm basically curious about. I'm sorry to interrupt. But for example, let's say that you were like a platinum player for 3 years, and then you would like fall off the train for like 2 years. Would you still just like go all in and try to like pursue that, or do you think that maybe you would give up?
You mean like, were we talking 10 years ago or today?
Well, in the speech you said that you would never give up, but like in your career you almost never, like you were always on the top, so like you never really had to face that decision. Maybe it was like hard at the beginning, but once you like already got there, you didn't really have like issues like that. But I'm just curious whether if like one of those years you like became like silver or something, if you would still go on.
It's a good question, and sometimes you can give a hypothetical answer, but you never really know until you're actually facing that decision. But it wasn't like always smooth sailing. Like I remember there was one year that I was not going to make platinum, and then I flew to Singapore for a Grand Prix. It was like crazy experience. Like I spent significantly more time on airplanes and in the airport than I did like actually on the ground in Singapore. But that was like what it took. I made top 8 of that Grand Prix and just barely got over the edge to make platinum that year. It was only 2 years ago. Like I flew to Stockholm to try to play a Grand Prix to get the last couple pro points to maybe be Player of the Year. So, and that's the type of stuff like you're not going to make those choices if you're not having fun. If you're not like super passionate about what you're doing, you're just going to be like, oh, it's okay. Like I'll be gold this year and maybe try again next year. But yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the great advantages that I have had over the years is just I love the game so much, and I'm always happy to keep playing.
Is it still the same way now? Because, for example, for me, I'm still passionate about Magic, but for example, 6 years ago, I just really wanted to like qualify for the Pro Tour. I just like, it was the only thing on my mind. The fire was just like burning so much, but it might not be as much anymore. Is that maybe the case for you? You know, you've proven a lot of things. I'm basically just curious to hear whether you still like have things to prove and whether you're like still really want to win, or if it maybe like fluctuates. If you can just talk about it a little bit.
Definitely still really want to win and feel like I have things to prove. It's like we have this new structure with the Magic Pro League, and I've been fortunate enough to be in the Magic Pro League for the last couple of years, but I haven't won. You know, I haven't beaten the Magic Pro League players. I haven't had a Mythic Championship win or been the number 1 ranked player or whatever. So it's like a new challenge, right? Like, I feel like I did the Grand Prix thing, and I don't need to play 55 more Grand Prix, like, in order to feel fulfilled as a Magic player. But it would be cool to prove that, like, hey, I belong in the Magic Pro League, and like on any given day, I can beat this really tough competition. So stuff like the World Championship, the highest level competition, is still really important to me, and I would love to be able to compete 1 or 2 more times in Worlds before it's all over.
You said that you don't necessarily maybe feel like a fulfilled Magic player yet, but do you think that feeling can like ever go away? Because like, for example, for me, when I never played a Pro Tour, I thought that once I qualify I will be like satisfied. Then I was like, well, if I become a gold pro and I'm on a gravy train, I will be satisfied. And it just goes on and on, because it takes time to like get there, and it's like slow. And once you get there, you kind of like get used to that, so you just want like even more. Do you think it like ever goes away?
Sure. I mean, that's a good question. And again, like, maybe you don't know until you get there. I'm sure that even if you ask like Paulo, right? Paulo has literally every single like accolade you can win in Magic, but I'm sure that he still like wants to do well in every event that he plays, and sometimes probably like, gets upset if he gets unlucky in a match or whatever. Like, he's still bringing that passion. He still really wants to win, and I'm sure that would always be the case for me as well in a hypothetical world. But also, like, it would be cool to just have some kind of like capstone achievement that I could look back on and be like, yeah, like, I was the best that time when I won the Pro Tour, when I won the World Champion, and I don't have that level of title to my name.
Another thing that I want to ask about is that you make a lot of content. I just wanted to ask whether like you're just doing it because why not, or whether you're like is that like a big part of what you're focusing on and you want to maybe do it more, or you perceive it more as a side thing, but you perceive yourself more as a professional player rather than like a content producer? If you can just talk about that a little bit.
I like producing content. I kind of, especially as I'm getting a bit older, am seeing myself, as much as a teacher, as a player. And we've got this new project called CFB Pro, which kind of like an unintentional plug here, but the reason that I'm like really excited about that is, it's the goal is to like go a little bit deeper for people that are like really trying to improve and be better Magic players. So there are times and there's certain type of content where it's like, oh, hey, let's just like talk about the deck that won the tournament last weekend, where it's like you can sometimes feel like you're just doing that because it's the thing to do and you're not that passionate. But when I actually get to do like a deep conceptual like teaching Magic type of thing, I love that, So I like the CFB Pro thing. I liked when I got to write the level 1 column for the Wizards website a few years ago. And that was a really hard job, but it was like very cool, after decades of playing Magic, to actually put pen to paper and be like, yeah, this is the stuff that I've learned that I can give to you, the reader. So yeah, I think content production is something that I really enjoy, and it's all about looking for, the ways to teach that most kind of jive with my personality and that I can.
Is it easy for you to write? Because there are some people who are just naturally talented to write, and it just takes them 2 hours to write something, and it's great. And maybe it's not the case for other people. So is it easy for you to write these articles, or does it take you a lot of time to make them?
It's a huge range. Some days it's I know exactly what I'm going to say, sit down, bang it out, never even look up from the computer screen until the article is done and submitted. But other times it's hours and hours and hours of research and writer's block and trying to get through. So it can be really, really different depending on the topic. But in general, what I find the hardest is just starting an article, getting a topic and writing the first couple of lines is sometimes so hard.
Yeah, I can relate.
Everything to procrastinate and I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll do it when I have a good topic. But then once I actually get in the zone, it comes pretty naturally.
Mm-hmm. Now that we have Corona, all of the tournaments are being played online. Is that a big issue for you? Are you one of those people who just love the paper Magic and they don't enjoy online as much, or you don't really care?
There's two things. One is I do really love paper Magic, which I think a lot of people kind of find ironic because I was the Magic Online champion. But I think that even though I do love playing on both Magic Online and Arena, I probably would not have fallen in love with the game the same way if it wasn't for the actual face-to-face playing with paper cards. So I miss that element. And also I really like playing a variety of formats. So I love Legacy and Modern. I love playing Limited, and that has been all erased from the schedule. If you flash back to the start of 2019, there were going to be these Players Tour events that were featuring Pioneer and Modern and Booster Draft, and I was really excited. I'm this is my chance, play Modern and Booster Draft. I can beat the best players in those formats because I have so much experience and I love them so much. But then those got all canceled, for reasons outside of our control, and replaced with Standard on Arena. But that's okay. I caught myself a few times over the past year and a half, kind of making excuses, feeling sorry for myself, I'd be doing so much better in the league if we were playing Modern, but I'm just not good at playing Standard on Arena, or these other people are so much better than me. But that's lame. I kind of have a New Year's resolution that I'm going to stop making those kinds of excuses and just try to be the best at whatever format the competitions are being held in.
Why do you think you're so much better at Modern? Is that you just think that you play the format more than the other people, or does it maybe play more into your natural talents? What is going on there?
I think it's just that the advantage that you get from having played Magic, what is it for me, 26 years? The advantage that you get is that you're just kind of more well-rounded. You've seen more formats. You've played Modern, you've played however many thousands of booster drafts. So there's there's thousands of super smart, super sharp, super skilled Magic players that could have picked up the game 2 years ago and be great at playing Standard on Arena, but they have more catching up to do when the schedule is more diversified, and you have to play Modern for the first time, and you have to play Booster Draft when you're not used to it. So I think my relative advantage is that I've just played longer and have more experience in a variety of formats.
But aren't the most people in MPL usually veterans, or you were talking about more generic Pro Tours and stuff, or?
Oh yeah, good point. I'm not going to have an edge over
Paulo.
Huey and Keith in Paulo, you know, in those older formats. But there's a lot of like younger people in MPL too, and I'm not trying to say like that they would do a bad job in these formats. I'm just saying like kind of that I enjoy it, and it comes more naturally for me to like jump between formats as opposed to someone who might have to do more groundwork to catch up. I just like it more too. Like you know, the play patterns of standard like kind of get old to me once I've played with the decks a bit. But I think the actual gameplay of Modern and Legacy and Booster Draft is more. It's like you get more variety in the gameplay. The standard is more like you kind of get to recognize the openings, like, oh, I'm supposed to play Heart's Desire instead of Edgewall Innkeeper on turn 1, and like, oh, I'm supposed to mulligan these types of hands. And like once you can get the openings with each deck in standard, you have a pretty good groundwork. But the older formats aren't like that. It's like you need to start thinking really carefully about like your first land drop of the game, and I like that quality.
That's interesting to hear. A lot of people say that, but I still like you see people like Brad just like winning so much more in standard, so it would just like kind of show that there's like still a lot of edge to be gained, but I don't know, it's maybe more about like
no doubt. I'm just like I just think pattern recognition is an important skill in standard. Not that there's not interesting plays, and standard is super deep with like deck building, sideboarding, gameplay, and I'm glad you brought up the Brad Nelson example, because I played I practiced with Brad on a team a couple years ago, and it was like he was thinking about things on a level that I was not even aware that people, stuff like the sideboard changes of like based on being on the play or the draw, or like my plan is different if I see my opponent has this card. Like he's just really he's really like fine grained in terms of looking at all those details, and you can get that in standard too. So I'm not trying to like any format or any accomplishments or whatever.
So you're kind of known for loving these mid-range decks. I even think that you just published an article maybe today or yesterday about some mid-range deck. I'm not really sure, but I saw something like that on Twitter. But anyway, I just wanted to ask about that. Why do you think that is? Do you just maybe think that those decks are the best if you can master them, or you just think that you're better at playing them? Why do you like prefer to play mid-range decks even if they might be like a little bit underpowered? What is going on there?
I kind of just like to play. Okay, so one of my like kind of approaches to the game is I'm not just battling like you as my opponent across the table. I'm also battling like the concept of like bad luck and variance and things going wrong with my own position in the game. So if I play a mono red burn deck where I'm going to lose the games that I draw 6 or 7 lands in my first 15 cards, like that's already a fail case, and I'm like already losing one of the battles. You know what I mean? So with mid-range decks, you tend to have like a higher individual card quality. Most of your cards, well, if you choose them, correctly, or the way I like to, you're happy to see them in your opening hand, or you're happy to draw them on turn 8 of the game. And I enjoy that quality, that like consistency, and you tend to have not as lopsided of matchups, so you don't feel like you lost the game like already because you got a bad pairing. So just having a little more control over things. Also like the process of like tuning and making a mid-range deck, feel like your own. So just the whole package is kind of fun for me.
I've actually had the same opinion about mid-range decks myself, And I think it's like true, especially for like GPs and stuff, because it's true that, as you said, you don't get like these mana floods and mana screwed, and you're like, it seems that you have things more in control. But I don't really think that at like the higher level of play, that necessarily like matters that much. Like when it comes to Magic, it usually comes down to like your win percentage against the field, right? And even though it like seems that you can control things more, you're still gonna have like maybe 60% win percentage, and if like the aggro deck gives you more than that, maybe you should still play that, right?
Yes. Yep. It's like I'm willing to play any deck that I think is going to give me the best chance of winning. So when people at home talk, like hear the pros talk about liking a certain kind of deck, that's usually just like a tiebreaker. You know, we don't have a Magic calculator in our head where can go like beep boop boop. Okay, mono red's going to give us 51%, and Sultai mid range going to give us 53%. You just have to make decisions based on your judgment, and if you don't know, and it's really close between two strategies, sometimes you lean towards the one that you enjoy or have more experience with, or that appeals to you.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, I think I've asked everything that I wanted to ask. Thanks for your time, Reid. It was fun.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me.
If you guys like the video, please click on the like and subscribe button, and see you next time. Bye bye.